Nancy Ann had her 16th birthday on the 9th of January, 1880. She left school at the end of the Easter term. Now it was September, and she had been acting as part nurse and housekeeper for the past 6 months, and but for the reason of her new role, she would have said she was happy to be at home. This is what she repeatedly told herself, for up to the beginning of the year, she'd had the idea of following in her brother's footsteps. Not, of course, going to Oxford, but going to one of the new training colleges that fitted young ladies to become teachers. Miss Craister, head of the Dame School, had encouraged her ideas along this line, but apparently it wasn't to be. Her disappointment was somewhat modified when she had a talk with James, who, on hearing of his mother's illness, had paid a quick visit to see her. He had not been accompanied by his wife, and of course this was natural, as she was now carrying his second child. But what he said to her about teaching was, "I shouldn't worry about missing such a career, for it isn't all milk and roses. It is very nerve-wracking at times. Likely I shall get used to it. I'm new to it, I admit, but—" He had stopped there. She had been troubled about James. She didn't think he was as happy as he should be, and this seemed to be borne out when, on the point of leaving, he looked around the hall and said, "I never realised how happy I was here, Nancy Ann. All my young days it seemed to be a cold house without much comfort. I didn't take into account the love that was in it. We all helped each other, didn't we? And we had fun." Then he had smiled and said, "Who would have thought, in those days, when you were a fighting, punching little termagant, that you would blossom into... Well, now look at you, a beautiful young lady." "Oh, James!" She had flapped her hand at him, saying, "Don't tease. Beautiful young lady indeed." "All right, you are not a beautiful young lady." He had put his arms around her, and they had hugged each other, and she had been on the point of tears when she said, "I love you. We all love you. Be happy, James." Only this morning they had heard that James had another son, and here they were talking about the event. She was arranging some late roses in a vase on a side table to the head of her mother's couch. Her grandmamma sat at the foot, plying her needle on a small embroidery frame. She had just said, "Well, they are coming thick and fast. They are wasting no time." And when her mother had replied, "I think it's better to have them when you are young," she thought how strange it was that they could talk so in front of her. Her mother's illness had seemed to change everyone in the house. Her grandmamma had suddenly become quite agile, and she nearing 70. She didn't have her fire lit in her room until the evening now, and spent most of her time in this room, and even insisted on taking her turn at the nursing. And strangely, she seemed to have got her hearing permanently back, for there had been times in the past when she would apparently endure periods of deafness. She smiled at herself at the thought. Then there was the changed relationship between the two women. The antagonism that had lain under the surface for years had vanished. They had become close. They talked or sat silent together. She had come into the room one day last week and was surprised to see her grandmamma patting her mother's hand. They had been talking, but the conversation stopped abruptly as she entered the room, and she guessed that their topic had been herself. Only yesterday, her mother had asked her a question that had left her absolutely tongue-tied for a moment. She had said, "Nancy Ann, do you ever think of marriage?" When she had got over her surprise, she had said, "Marriage, Mamma? Me? No, I don't honestly think I do. Well," she confessed now, "once or twice I have. When I saw Elsie Ridley married last month, I suppose I wondered then if I would ever get married, but I doubt I ever will. In fact, I'm sure I never shall." "What makes you so sure?" "Well, whom do I know, Mamma? Who would want to marry me? There are Farmer Reynolds' 2 sons, but one's married to the sheep and the other to the cows, and they are old, well, over 20. She was so pleased when she saw her mother laugh. She liked to make her laugh, and when she had added, "Of course, there's always Mick McLaughlin. Now I know he has eyes on me," her mother had put her hand to her chest and had started to cough, spluttering, "Oh, Nancy Ann, Nancy Ann." When her coughing bout was over and she had got her breath back enough to speak, she said, "'Tis funny about that boy McLaughlin. He was the one you fought with, wasn't he, on what was to be your last Sunday at home before you went..."